Very good afternoon and welcome to this discussion under ORF's Neighbourhood Scope series. It's titled Pakistan, a Post-Election Reckoning. The election we refer to is not the current ongoing election in India, but the one held in Pakistan on the 8th of February. It was widely seen as the most rigged election, perhaps in Pakistan's history, stolen by the army, where the mandate favored Imran Khan, now in jail, but the outcome was a different sort of hybrid regime with Shehbaz Sharif as the prime minister. So, has the dust settled on that election? What are the internal and external challenges that Pakistan's new dispensation faces? To unpack these issues, today we have a stellar panel which includes four very keen observers of Pakistan, two from India and two from across the border. We have virtually with us Ms. Marvi Sirmet, who is a journalist and human rights advocate in Pakistan. We also have Mr. Husain Haqqani, who's a senior fellow at the Hudson Institute and former ambassador of Pakistan to the United States. We have here in person Mr. Sushant Sareen, who's senior fellow at the Observer Research Foundation. And we also have Ms. Indrani Bagchi, who's the CEO of the Ananta Aspen Center, India. My name is Ajay Bisaria, and I will be the moderator today. What we'll do is we will have about 8 minutes for each panelist for some initial comments, followed by about 2 minutes of follow-up in the first round. And then we move on to a second round of discussions on issues that might emerge before opening it up for Q&A with the audience. So let me get going right away and start with Marvi. Marvi, the question for you really is on the internal situation post-election in Pakistan. How stable is this regime, and how are civil-military relations playing out? And another important institution, the judiciary, how is the judicial challenge, how serious is the judicial challenge to the establishment? The floor is yours, Marvi.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much, Mr. Bisaria. I'm really grateful for this opportunity, and I feel privileged to be here with you. So coming to your question, the Pakistani government right now is as stable as any hybrid government in Pakistan has been in the past. I would just say this regime is not just hybrid, I would call it hybrid plus, in which the rules of game are pretty clear, very heavily tilted towards the military establishment. They are not interested in keeping any secret of their influence. They have not been for quite some time. As far as I was just thinking about your initial comments about the most rigged elections. I was in 2018 when the last elections happened. I was on ground. Right now, I'm in the USA. I was at that time on ground. I was reporting, I was covering those elections. And I was also fortunate to be part of the election monitoring team of the Human Rights Commission of Pakistan. And I was coordinating the election watch team in Islamabad. And I can tell you that that election, when we were debriefing the press after our monitoring exercise, I was on the panel, and our panel was headed by Ayir Rahman, late Ayir Rahman, who was the General Secretary of HRCP at that time. And he had said, I still remember, he said, this is the dirtiest elections in the history of Pakistan. So every time the bar becomes a little higher of the rigging of elections manipulation. I would call it manipulation rather than rigging. the deep state actually manages and manipulates the entire process. And even before the process starts, the machinations put decide the places of all the players. And this is how the entire game is. So rig seems to be slightly smaller word. It doesn't convey the extent of what happens in the election. So this was certainly not the most rigged elections, as some of my colleagues have termed it in last few months. This election was as manipulated as it could be, as it was in 2018, with few more, because they are emboldened, they know there won't be any consequences, or if there would be any consequences, the present players would not be there. So they are quite emboldened, and that has that played out in these elections. And we could see that many phenomena was they had tried and tested in 2018 and even before. But much of it was just noise on the social media. In a minute, I would come to why I say that. Before the elections, you would have heard a lot of noise about so many of the candidates from Imran Khan's PTI were prevented from filing their nomination papers. But we now know that PTI was the party with most nominations, more than 2,000 nomination papers. So they ended up filing most nominations than other parties. Similarly, there was a lot of noise about what happened on 9th May 2022. They call it Sanehai 9 May, the tragedy of 9th May, in which the PTI's the workers, they attacked several of military installations and whatnot. A lot of violence happened that day. After that, there was a crackdown on PTI workers throughout the country. And I mean, there is so many fake cases were registered, and people are still in jails, incarcerated. People, their party members, party leaders were abducted. Some of them went underground. And there was a lot of noise that they are not allowed to contest the election. But we saw one of the most wanted person in the 9th May cases is now the chief minister of one of the most important province. I mean, the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa is most important province in the sense that it is on the front line of terrorism and terrorist activity, and he is the chief minister. So many other key leaders of PTI who were underground, they contested elections from being underground, and so there are a lot of contradictions. There's a lot of gap between what was being said and what actually happened. And I would remind you one more thing. I think I have one more minute left, perhaps. But one more thing. In 2013, the previous elections, 2 elections ago, 2013 election was the one which Imran Khan used to for the 2014 dharnas, and there was a lot of noise about the election rigging, and PTI actually went to court against the massive rigging. The court decided, although court did not decide in favor of Imran Khan's petition, but PTI nonetheless came up with more than 200 petitions in the electoral, the terminal election tribunals, challenging results of more than 200 seats. This time, they have only challenged like 52 seats. So there's a lot of gap between what is being portrayed in the media, how social media is being used, and what actually happened. I do not uh, uh, I don't agree with those who think that the electoral machinery was rigged in favor of PML-N against Imran Khan. I think electoral machinery was rigged against everyone and for everyone. This was an exercise to limit all the parties in their own safe corners. And for Imran Khan, they've chosen Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. People's Party is already in Sindh. But for Nawaz Sharif, they could not let him go unchallenged in Punjab, because whosoever comes in Punjab holds the power in the center. So they his party was challenged in Punjab. So his party did not get enough seats in Punjab. Comfortable majority was not was prevented from giving to Nawaz Sharif. Maulana Fazlur Rahman, another important party in Balochistan, he is angry that he was not given, he could not enjoy the generosity of the military establishment. So I think this election was also rigged and managed and manipulated like the previous elections. But it was not rigged against Imran Khan only. It was rigged against everyone and for everyone. I'll wait for others' comments and then we can.
Madhvi, I was also there in Islamabad for the last election, 2018,
Yes, I remember.
watching
Yeah.
it there. And the difference to me seemed to be that at that point, when it was rigged against Nawaz Sharif was in jail, and there was no noise or no movement of the whole PML-N against it. They just quietly faded away. So perhaps the expectation again this time was that Imran Khan would fade away, be in jail, but that hasn't really come true. So, the follow-up is in that context. Is the army now completely in charge, having changed that mandate that the people gave, apparently for Imran Khan, but has the Imran challenge been quelled by the army, and has the internal dissent within the army also been quelled? Is it in charge now?
Well, I see it in slightly differently. Imran Khan is not I don't think they want to get rid of Imran Khan or they want to eliminate PTI completely. They don't. Otherwise, we wouldn't see Imran Khan's party almost in every province. Their presence and their very loud presence, and in the jail, he is living in jail like King Akbar. I mean, he has everything. No other politician has ever had this kind of treatment while in jail. So I don't think they want to eliminate. They just want him to know who is the daddy, and I think by now he knows who is daddy, and he's not anti-establishment at all. He won't. I don't think he would pose any problem, because he's really clamoring for a quote unquote deal. In Pakistan, they call it deal when they achieve yeah, it's like sealing a deal with the establishment. So I think he's waiting for that, and he might get one because really they don't want to eliminate this party. Otherwise, I can see so many establishments proteges still in the folds of this party. So many of them have joined. The word is that even Sher Afzal Marwat, who is emerged as Imran Khan's right-hand man and who appears to be very vocal against the military establishment, but we all know, people who have done journalism in Pakistan, they know that he has been a protege, and he just can't go against the military. And he has actually said so many times in media in the recent days as well that PTI wants to work with the military establishment, and we want to bridge this gap. So, and in the recent on Monday, today in the National Assembly session, we saw a very unusual bonhomie between PTI and the rest of the parties, which was unusual. But they said that they did that because Iran's leader had come to Pakistan. But anyway, so I think this thing is going to resolve itself because every party now knows who holds the power, and they cannot go against them. So your question about civil military relations, they are going to go, if this is last regime was hybrid, this one is hybrid plus, next probably hybrid plus plus plus. So I don't see any, I'm sorry for being cynical, but I don't see any hope because I don't think there is a serious challenger to that power.
Okay, thank you. So let me take this to Sushant, who's right here. So Sushant, one part, if you can quickly react to this proposition of Marvi's that the army is telling Imran who's daddy, but Imran is still looking for that deal. So will he get that deal? But more importantly, how will this nosediving economic situation and the huge security challenges shape the stability of the regime and its behavior in the next few months?
Thanks, Ajay. I can't resist but asking Marvi that Pakistan politics sounds like Apple iPhone. It's just the same model, but you tweak it a little bit and you call it Pro Max. And I believe that's what this current government is called, hybrid Pro Max these days. So although I think Apple iPhone does have a lot more wow value than Pakistani politics. But
we do have a lot of wow value.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
But look, frankly, I look at what is happening in Pakistan in a very paradoxical term. One, I don't agree with Marvi, and I have always had disagreements on Pakistani politics. There's no doubt that the election was rigged. It was rigged before the polling happened, but I think it was really stolen after the polling was over and the counting happened. Because nobody expected the counting to throw up the kind of results it was throwing by about 10 o'clock that evening. And that is when everything stopped and they tried to completely rig the election. I don't think the current army leadership would not have wanted Nawaz Sharif to win Punjab big, which is why they raised something called the IPP. Now that the IPP has completely disappeared, everybody seems to imagine that it wasn't there, but when the IPP was there, all the local worthies were corralled into the IPP. It sank completely, but that's besides the point. So they tried to fix the result, but it didn't come out the way they wanted it to. So finally, they had to make do with a bad situation. And that's the way I think the election went. Everybody thought that Imran's party will do very well in KP, but even out there, they had put up Parvez Khattak and they'd put up a whole lot of other people, and it was assumed that there'll be some kind of a mishmash government and they'll be able to ward off Imran Khan. So the biggest surprise was the way people voted, and which is why I come to the great paradox of the situation in Pakistan now, that you have the weakest prime minister in the last 40 years. And I say weakest simply because the man has no agency of his own, frankly speaking. Shehbaz Sharif is okay. He can strut around like a prime minister, but where does he really call the shots? I haven't seen him really call the shots. But he is running a government which I agree is very stable and very secure, and it is secure and stable as long as the army agrees to let it be stable and secure. The day they don't want it to be stable and secure, they'll pull it down. Now, whether it is the army or the army chief, or if the army chief goes, then we don't know what's going to happen, and I'll just come to that in a bit. I think the one mistake, which, at least this is my view, people are free to push back. There is a lot which is, like I said, the iPhone, the same model. You can change the chip, you can change You can bring in dynamic island for whatever that is. I don't even know what that is right now. You can do all of that, but it essentially remains the same model. You can do that. But I think in Pakistan's case, looking at it only from the prism of the past and what has been happening is a mistake, because a lot has changed. And you don't have to be a fan of Imran Khan, and I'm not, but to accept reality for what it is, that he has upset the apple cart in ways that nobody really imagined him to be able to do. So I think that is something which we have to admit, and a lot has changed. And when I say a lot has changed, in effect, what has happened is that, and this is my view, people are free to push back against it. I think what we are seeing is a breakdown of what can be called the elite consensus, which was running Pakistan. What we see today is not just a civil military conflict, which is very much there. We see a military conflict, because the kind of reports which are coming out from within the army, we don't know the veracity of it, because Pakistan has a free and independent media, but which cannot report on the army. So we really don't know. So we have to look for scraps of information to figure it out. But obviously some things are happening, which leads me to believe that you are seeing a military versus military conflict. You are seeing a conflict within political parties or within the governing coalition. There are pulls and pressures out there. You are seeing a state versus street conflict, and which is very clearly visible. And frankly speaking, under this kind of a situation, I don't see how stability is returning. Yes, there is a veneer of stability which is there right now. The economy is not tanking the way it was tanking, but has it been fixed? Has it actually been put back on the rails? I don't see that happening. So there has the politics been settled? I don't think so. I think because these various multiple conflicts that we are seeing taking place is keeping things in a bit of a flux. I haven't seen, it's been a month and a half since this government has come into power, but does it really give the impression that this is a government which is in charge? Yeah, people can say, well, there was a by-election supposed to take place, which was like a mini general election. Say what you will. But does it give you the impression that here is a government which is here to stay, which will run the place, which is empowered? I don't know how many people, I don't get that sense with what's happening inside Pakistan. And it is against this backdrop that you have what you and a lot of other people call the polycrisis, which is everything bunching up at the same time. Now, each of these polycrises, we've spoken about the political issues or the socio-political issues. There is a massive economic crunch which has simply not been settled. I don't see it being settled simply because I don't see anybody come up with any kind of a cogent plan on how to put the economy back on the rails. What we see as plans coming out are basically, old formulations being packaged in new forms and being pushed. And that can be summed up in a word: borrow as much money as you can. जब वापस करने का time आएगा तब की तब देखेंगे. We'll see when we have to return. It's like what they've done to the Chinese, and we were speaking about it the other day. That, okay, fine, you invested in CPEC, great. We had a ball, we had a party for 10 years. Now, if you want your money back, you invest in phase 2, otherwise forget about phase 1. We can't return your money. If that is the model, then good luck to the Saudis who are planning to invest in Pakistan. Good luck to the Emirates. I don't know how they're going to get their money back. And I don't see anybody really having a plan of action. It's the same old rehashed thing. Sell PIA, everything will be fixed. Scrap the NFC award, everything will be fixed. If at all it was that simple. So I don't see that happen. And then you have a security crisis on your hands. You have a security crisis which they simply have not been able to get a handle on. So I'm not very sanguine about the stability or the prospects going forward. And that is where I see things stand, and which as an Indian, I have to admit, is both very satisfying as well as very worrying. Satisfying because Pakistan is not a friendly country, so if something bad is happening out there, I'm not going to shed any tears. But worrying because ultimately it's a neighboring country, and if there is serious instability out there, then whether I like it or not, I have to worry. So that's where I'm at.
Okay, so the expectation is that the 24th IMF program will kick in the extended fund facility from 1st of July, and that will be $6 billion. Do you think Pakistan will implement the kind of deep economic structural reforms the way India did in the 90s and which is expected? Or will it be more of the same and going on after 3 years for another loan?
So, my own sense is that the Indian reform process hasn't been sufficiently studied or has been dumbed down, especially by Pakistan when they look at it. Number one, we went to IMF once, the IMF made certain prescriptions, we followed it up to a point, not entirely. It worked for us and we were able to stabilize our economy. The Pakistanis have gone, 24 times or 23 times, they'll be going the 24th time. And it's the same story every time. So they don't do even the most necessary reforms, and because they can't take the heat, so they try and cool things down, and then the next crisis erupts. They have to go back, and the conditions become tougher. And this time around, the conditions will be very tough. Now we'll have to see: do they have the ability to go through that 3 or 4 year program that they're looking for? Undertake all those necessary structural reforms, which are extremely painful. Thankfully, when we went to IMF in 1991, we had some painful reforms to do, but some of them were not very painful for the normal people. After all, if you were going to, end DGFT, very good for it. If you were going to free the foreign exchange markets, very good for it. There were a whole lot of reforms, which I think everybody welcomed because the Babus might not have liked those reforms, but ordinary citizens loved it, right? I don't see the kind of reforms that the Pakistanis will have to take now will be extremely painful. And how much pain can at least a nominally elected, selected, call it what you will, appointed government take? Ultimately, they have pretensions of being popularly elected or going back to the people. How much of that heat will they be able to take is a question which I think we'll get to know in the next 2 years or so.
Okay, so let me take all this to Husain. Husain, you've heard the conversation so far, so please feel free to react to anything you've heard so far. But my question to you really is, how does Pakistan see the world now with this new dispensation? And how does the world see Pakistan? And particularly from your vantage in the US, how's the US-Pakistan relationship shaping up? And how is the US-China balancing act going on? And how will the Afghanistan factor play into all this?
Thank you. Let me just say that the four of us who are part of this panel, we all have a basic flaw. We all, our claim to fame is writing about and commenting on Pakistan. So none of us can sort of get away with saying that, well, much of it is preordained. पहले भी ये हो चुका है, उससे पहले भी यही हो चुका है, अब भी यही हो रहा है, आराम से बैठो. And since we don't want to do that, we give you long bhashans. But bottom line is that as early as 1972, Herbert Feldman, who wrote several books on Pakistan, he titled his second book, From Crisis to Crisis. And a very senior Pakistani journalist in 1969 published his memoirs before his passing, which were based on Pakistan's history from 1947 to 1969. Now remember, no election has yet been held in Pakistan, and the breakup of Pakistan hadn't taken place. Things were relatively good. And he titled his book in Urdu, Mashallah se Mashallah. So if you understand the context, then you don't need to go into too many details. Bottom line is, since 1970, Pakistan has had 12 elections. Each election has been disputed in one form or another. There has been no undisputed election, number one. Number two, in every election, the military has tried to influence the outcome of the election, sometimes by just tilting the scale a little bit, sometimes by changing the ground rules, and sometimes they have had to have a slightly heavier hand, as Sushant alluded to about this election. So that reality hasn't changed. The only thing that is slightly different, and Ajay, you seem to be very impressed by that, is Imran Khan's ability to create or maintain a noise machine. Let us be honest, who built that noise machine? That noise machine was built by the military as part of its fifth generation warfare. The mistake they made was that instead of independent recruitment of the young people who were going to be part of these troll farms, they asked Imran Khan to give members of his youth wing to them to train. And so these people were trained in the disinformation arts and in social media. That's why they continue to be so noisy on social media, and they are able to retain that. In terms of vote percentage, I mean, I think that his percentage of votes was not heavily bigger. If you calculate from what it was earlier, this includes a strong segment of those who have traditionally supported the military's steadying hand in Pakistan. So in that sense, Sushant's point is valid, that there is an internal debate. And why has that debate occurred? Because senior generals around 2020 started thinking about tweaking the policies that they have towards the region, towards the world. This is when the Americans have announced they are about to withdraw from Afghanistan, when it is very clear that Pakistan needs to have some kind of modus vivendi with India. And so they're trying to adjust those. And at that moment, Imran Khan becomes a problem because he doesn't want to be flexible, because for him, being a narcissist that he is, his own popularity is more important, and his popularity derives from the old hardline views, more undiluted Ayub Khan, undiluted Ziaul Haq, undiluted Musharraf. That is better for him. And so if you notice, many of the people in his party, the second tier is almost all people who are connected to those past regimes. So it's the past army leadership and its proteges and the new emerging army leadership and their proteges who are basically in conflict. And the new proteges, because it's not easy to produce a new political elite, they have decided that they are going to embrace certain old politicians who opportunistically have become their partners. Now, those are the basic facts. As far as the nature of the hybrid regime is concerned, it is less hybrid, and you and Mari and Sushant are both right that this is much more tilted towards the military than in the past. Personally, I don't think that any civilian leader of Pakistan in the near future is basically going to challenge the military in any significant way. Even Imran Khan's challenge is primarily designed to get his supporters within the establishment to overthrow those who are in control right now and bring him back. And he will play ball with them. It's not going to happen, but that's what he's hoping to do. Now, on the question of how it looks from the United States' perspective, how it looks in terms of the relationship with Afghanistan, and I'm sure all of you are also interested how it looks in terms of relations with India. And I would say that in all those terms, the army's traditional worldview basically obtains. They still look upon the United States as a country which should be interested in Pakistan's security. Look, let us remember, Pakistan didn't go to the United States in 1949-50 just because it needed money. It also needed military equipment. And the United States, even today, is one of the few countries in the world that gives military equipment as aid. So if you can't afford to buy military equipment, you have to become an American ally to get that kind of military equipment to be able to sustain your military prowess. And that is one of the reasons. And so they would continue to want a better relationship with the United States. The US right now has other priorities after their leaving Afghanistan, after the fact that their relationship with India has become stronger than their relationship with Pakistan. All of that basically means that they can't continue to have the same advantage as they used to. Afghanistan, I think that the Pakistani deep state will continue to engage with the Taliban. They usually do play, like in poker terms, they play all in. They played all in with the Taliban. And now that the Taliban are being difficult, they are going to try and figure out how to get the Taliban to change so that it suits Pakistan a little bit better. The basic paradigm for Pakistan in terms of both its external relations and its internal governance is kind of fixed. And that is the real problem. That is why in Reimagining Pakistan, my last book, I make the fundamental argument that Pakistan needs to revisit many, many fundamental presumptions about itself. It can't position itself as just the other to India. It can't be a religion-based polity. It can't be a military-dominated polity and not have the same results. Now, as far as the economic factor is concerned, let me just say that the economy is going to be a major factor in how the appearance of things is managed. And if 24 IMF programs have not convinced Pakistan to reform fundamentally, 23 programs have not convinced Pakistan to reform its economy fundamentally, I don't think that the 24th program is going to be fundamentally different. The rest of the details, well, let's be honest, the rest of the details are just fine print. The headline is still what it has been around for a while.
Thank you, Hussein. Let me also probe you a little bit on another institution which we haven't yet discussed, which is Pakistan's judiciary. It has been historically seen as either a handmaiden of the army or an apologist for the coups, and not really standing up on its own, except for a couple of times in Musharraf's time. But the recent kind of pushback from the judiciary and from especially the 6 judges who wrote a letter, do you think there is something, some kind of reimagining going on in the judiciary at all? Or is this also something that will be quelled with the jackboot of the army?
Look, first of all, we must understand that it's not just the jackboot. It's also, there are key constituencies in the country, including the business community, including the landowning community, including the religious constituency, who basically look to the army and have always drawn their strength from them and given strength in return. As far as the judiciary is concerned, Pakistan's judiciary, look, we simplify things when we say somebody's a handmaiden. No one's a real handmaiden. Even handmaidens protest and complain every now and then and try to elbow their way into getting something different. And so that is what has been happening in Pakistan as well at different times. But when the chips are down, here's my question. If you do not have a culture of rule of law, where just because a judge has said something, everybody will fall in line. If that is not the culture, if that is not the political reality, then what is the judiciary going to do? The 6 judges wrote a letter. Several days have gone by. What's the outcome? So there are a lot of things that emanate from my country of birth that essentially are events. What I request everybody who wants to be a Pakistan observer and analyst is to look at the process in its totality. And there may be, you talk about the judges uprising of 2008, 2011. A revisionist version of it is that the Chief Justice at that time had a wink and a nod from somebody within the military establishment, because it was time for Musharraf to go. And he was not listening to anybody. When people went to him and said, "Sir, it's time for you to relinquish your uniform," he didn't want to listen. President Bush called him and he didn't want to listen. So a crisis had to be created that he could be nudged out. So there are these realities which complicate the situation and should not be forgotten while analyzing contemporary realities. I don't think that the judiciary is going to go too far in challenging the established order. Will they tweak it? Yes. And in fact, it would be a very good thing, both from the point of view of the politicians, as well as from the point of view of the military, to let the judges do the tweaking rather than them having to battle it out in some way.
Okay, so we aren't going to have anytime soon a new civil judicial compact asking the army to go back to the barracks, or trying to join forces to question the kind of role the army has played. So I think let's take...
My question to you, Ajay, would be, if there is such a compact, let's try and tease it out. What will be the enforcement mechanism? I mean, the PTI thought that just by mobilizing its voters and getting them to the polls and thereby, outfoxing the military strategy, which was that these guys are not going to show up because they will have different election symbols. They use the social media very effectively to inform everybody that, okay, we don't have the bat symbol anymore, but, the symbol in your constituency is Bangan, and in the other one, it's Kela, etc., etc. Go vote. They got their voters to vote. But what happened? So my point is that too many disappointments do make people sort of be careful about how far they're going to push. And that is exactly what I think will be the case with the judiciary. The judiciary knows it can rule. It can rule that, this is all wrong, everything's gone. But what happens the next morning? Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, as Prime Minister, tried to exercise his power of changing the army chief. And he had backlash. What if a similar situation happens with judges? They do not want to test that proposition.
Okay, so none of the institutions, the civilian politicians, the judiciary, and even the people can shake this stranglehold of the army. So let me take that to you, Indrani. The army, apart from everything else, also runs the foreign and security policy of Pakistan. So how would you see Pakistan now, or the Pakistan army, using the civilian establishment to navigate this renewed geopolitical flux, in particularly this recent visit from Iran and mending fences, and the bigger contestation between the US and China? How would this regime be any different from past ones?
Thank you, Ajay. For me, what's interesting was not just the fact that the Prime Minister of Iran, Ibrahim Raisi, was in Pakistan recently, and we've seen at least the statements that came out, the Pakistan pipeline, the cooperating on defense and security, particularly in Afghanistan, and with the Baloch groups, which was the cause of the tit-for-tat shootout strikes between Iran and Pakistan in January. I'd be much more concerned, frankly, about something else, which is that Iran may be mending fences with Pakistan, but it's not the US's commentary that is of greater importance here. It would be the Saudi commentary that would be of greater, the Saudi reaction that would be of greater interest in this current position, because frankly, the Pakistan-Iran sort of kiss and make up effort that we saw last week comes at a very interesting geopolitical situation in the Middle East, and I mean, quite apart from the US-China issue. And that is because what you're seeing playing out between Israel and Iran, not in Gaza, but between Israel and Iran, with the strikes that Iran conducted in Israel and the counter-strikes. The lesson from the Iranian strikes in Israel was one, which was the only standout lesson, in my view, was one that Israel did not only have the US, UK, and France by its side. It had Saudi Arabia and Jordan by its side, which says only one thing, that those Abraham Accords worked. And because they worked, they presage a new geopolitical reality in that region. Pakistan, probably, I don't know whether they actually are aware of where this might go, but what we are seeing is an very unusual and completely unprecedented Arab-Israeli understanding. Not overt, but nobody provides real-time intelligence to missile strikes coming at Israel. That was extraordinary in how it played out. And I think what you would see as we go along is whether Pakistan falls in that particular in the crosshairs of that particular geopolitical crisis, and it is a crisis. There's no getting away from it, because what is happening in Gaza was overlaid by the first naked aggression between Iran and Israel. Two countries with two powers, but two countries with sophisticated defense abilities. If Saudi Arabia, we have always talked about whether Saudi Arabia was friendly with Pakistan because Pakistan was its silent nuclear sort of option. And that is something that, as outsiders, we would look at. Is that option going to be worked on? Or does Iran no longer have the ability to be the kind of nuclear power that Saudi Arabia and the other Arabs would be afraid of? None of these questions have any answers. But I think the story has moved well beyond the Iran-Pakistan equation, and I think it is much deeper, much more dangerous than we would have otherwise expected it to be. Whether Pakistan stays in where Pakistan stays in the US-China conflict, I think I think Pakistan has made its choice. Whether if the army wants to source equipment from the US, as Hussein says, and I have no reason to doubt that. I think they still miss the fact that they don't get as much from the US. I think one of the things that Pakistan is grappling with is the fact that its geographical position is no longer its geopolitical meal ticket. And that realization, I think, may or may not have sunk in as deeply as the world would like it to be, but I think it is sinking in. Whether it makes a choice, I think it has already made a choice on the ground, because China's presence in Pakistan is far, far ahead of the US presence or the US interest at this point. The US, having walked out of Afghanistan, has virtually left that region to take care of itself, muddle through in any way that it would like to be, as long as they are not sending terrorists to the US homeland. That leaves the last question: is where is India with this new Pakistan? My sense is that no matter what happens in the elections here, I think India will let Pakistan do its thing, because at this point, the relationship has been concentrated to a security relationship. There is literally no other points of engagement. I noticed that the Iranian Prime Minister spoke about the Iran-Pakistan pipeline. Some of us here have spent many column centimeters reporting on the Iran-Pakistan-India pipeline for many years. So it was interesting to see that coming up out of the old pages of history. Where India is concerned, I think India would want a stable periphery, and that is irrespective of which government comes to power. Deep instability in Pakistan will add to the kind of groups that India would have to worry about quite significantly. I think in many ways, Pakistan itself will have to come to terms with something like Article 370. And the fact that is a new reality in this country. So making a demand that, or putting that precondition that we'd have to reverse 370 to for talks to start with Pakistan, I don't think will go very far, even with a government that is not the BJP. My sense is that there will be a distance, there will be a polite distance at the best of times, and that's where it will remain for some time to come.
So, actions by Pakistan against Iran, air actions, and Afghanistan. And for a while, India was demoted to enemy number 3 because Iran and Afghanistan were climbing the charts. Pakistan seemed to accept the principle of hot pursuit of terrorists in terrorist sanctuaries across their borders. Do you think this is going to impact the way Pakistan deals with militant organizations within its countries, or do you think it will continue to be instrumentizing them for using them against neighbors?
I think what Husain said made a very wise comment, which is that, he said it in the context of the 23 previous IMF programs. But I think that applies to terror groups. I haven't seen anything that suggests that Pakistan believes that that not using terror groups as an instrument is a better thing. So I would say that they will be waiting for an opportunity to restart that. I don't think those groups have gone anywhere. I don't think their connections with the state or the establishment has gone anywhere either. It's not, the Pakistan-Afghanistan dynamic, as it plays out, it's not only Pakistan being angry about the TTP. There are other areas there, there are other groups there, and Afghan Taliban is not harboring the TTP for nothing. They are also harboring the TTP for leverage. And so I think they are old hands at playing that game. I don't think they've relinquished that game at all.
Okay, so Pakistan, you feel, will not abandon the instrument of terrorism. But let me take that last idea that you had put on the table on how India should deal with all this to the rest of the panelists. So let me start with you, Marvi, on the question which Indrani referred to, which is, how do you think the India-Pakistan relationship will play out in the next 2 years? I say 2 years because this is what everyone seems to be giving this regime till General Asim Munir comes up for his extension. So in the next 2 years, how do you see India-Pakistan relationship shaping up, given that we possibly will have on the 4th June a government which may be called Modi 3.0?
So yesterday, while talking to the businessmen in Pakistan, in Islamabad, probably Lahore, it was yesterday or day before, I'm not best placed in time and space. The land of the mother of democracy is 9 hours probably ahead of the leader of the free world. So it may be yesterday or day before yesterday, when Arif Habib, one of the leading businessmen, he asked the Prime Minister to shake hand with India and Imran Khan, to which he did not respond directly to it, but he, with a endearing smile, he expressed hope. And few weeks before, I was chasing a story on Liaquat Chattha, who's the former commissioner, Rawalpindi. I was doing this story for Times of India. So I interviewed a couple of people in Pakistan's civil bureaucracy. And there was this, so I asked a couple of other questions as well, including this one. And I sensed that they want to move ahead on the trade with India at least, but they are waiting for Indian election and dust the electoral, settle the electoral dust. if that happens, I mean, I would be very happy. I've been doing this, track to diplomatic missions for last 30 years. I don't know for how many years, and nothing happens on this front. My friend Sushant always makes fun of me for doing, for consistently doing that. Um, um, so on that front, I'm hopeful from the Pakistan side, because they have, now the business community, when we started talking loudly about trade between Pakistan and India, this is 2 decades ago, during Musharraf's time, I remember. The business community was the one who used to say that you want to finish us. The Indian industrialists, Indian business people, they are far more, I mean, they would just eat us up. So we can't go into that competition. That's a suicidal mission, etc., etc. So we used to hear a lot of opposition from the business community in Pakistan. But now, if they are saying it themselves, that's a pretty drastic change. So I'm trying to understand how it happened, and why this change. And obviously, it's not rocket science. What Pakistan's economic situation and how the business community is completely crushed between the wheels of what establishment wants them to do. I know a leading businessman, once again, leading businessman, Pakistan's top 5, who I was interviewing, and he said that he was asked by the someone from very powerful from the deep state to buy lunches and dinners for the people in Dharna, the 2014 Dharna, and he spent fortune in doing that. So this kind of this shopping list is increasing day by day. Because if you remember, Sushant would remember the Asghar Khan case, in which the ISI officials were accused of doling out money to the politicians against Benazir Bhutto. Now I think they have learned the trick, and they don't spend their own money. They don't dole out money like this. There are other ways, through the businessmen. So the business community is completely crushed, and between this kind of machinations and the otherwise inflation and lack of business and stability. You were saying, Sushant was saying about stability. Yes, no one says, I mean, I don't think, the very definition of stability is that how the transfer of power is going to happen. So I don't remember any stable government in Pakistan for last, I don't know how many decades, except Pervez Musharraf's government. We knew that he's not going anywhere. But towards the last 3-4 years of even his government, there was no stability.
Okay,
so
let me take that question also, the limited one, to Husain. I know you have to leave earlier, so I just wanted to get your view. I won't ask you what you said in your book, why can't India and Pakistan be friends? Not such a fundamental question, but how do you see post 4th June and post-Indian election results, the bilateral relationship shaping up?
I do not see a fundamental change. I agree with Indrani. I agree with Sushant. I agree with Marvi. Everyone has implicitly said that nothing fundamental is going to change. Look, a fundamental change has to come within Pakistan, both in terms of how it moves forward as a nation and how it looks at its region and its world. In Pakistan, between mosque and military, I described what was the Pakistan paradigm, which was created soon after the creation of the country, which was Islam is the national unifier, India is the eternal enemy, and we need international support to be able to sustain ourselves. Now, at that time, the international support came bilaterally from the United States because of the Cold War. That was an opportunity that went on for a sufficiently long time. Now, there is an attempt to try and find other international backers, whether it's China, whether it's international financial institutions, whether it's the countries in the Arab countries of the Gulf. The attitude that, look, we are a country that is there, no Indian. In fact, I was just thinking that one of the side effects of Hindutva politics in India is that Pakistanis should feel a little more reassured that Indians don't want to take over Pakistan anymore, because that was the mantra always, that the Indians always want to undo partition. Why would somebody who wants to build a Hindu Rashtra take another 225 million Muslims to create problems for themselves? So that should be laid to rest. Then should be the practical approach. We are a country of 220 million people. The welfare of our people is our goal. India, China, Afghanistan, and Iran are our neighbors. We need to figure out how to trade with them. There is no other country in the world that prospers economically without trading with its neighbors. Then how do we have peace with them? Then how do we start having these conversations so that I can actually arrive in Delhi at short notice when Sushant says to me, tomorrow there's a conversation and I should be able to show up without a visa, with comfort. That should be the goal. And that can only come with, and then of course that involves not having each other fear terrorists are coming or assassins are coming to kill the terrorists. Any of that should not be there. And so all of that needs a very fundamental rethink. That is not possible with a establishment that has a fixed paradigm, and it can tweak that paradigm. You had Musharraf, who was slightly more liberal within that paradigm. You had Ziaul-Haq, who was far more religiously conservative within that paradigm. You had Ayub Khan and Yahya Khan and Kiani and Bajwa, who were somewhere in the middle. And then you have these politicians who are only trying to get a piece of the action. They want to be able to have the scraps from the table of power, even their conflicts with the establishment. If you look at it, I mean, I've been there long enough, I've been part of it sometime, but a lot of their conflicts are essentially patronage conflicts. They are not principal conflicts. I mean, for example, if the day after it had been ascertained that there will be a ceasefire over Kargil, Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif had fired General Musharraf for initiating hostilities with a neighboring country without taking the Prime Minister into confidence, maybe the end would have still been the same, but the argument over which that end came would have been different. So all we have is a political elite, a business elite, and a military elite that is very trapped in a certain way of thinking. And that way of thinking will have to change for things to move. Now, there is an expectation in Islamabad that a reassured, re-elected Prime Minister Modi will probably reach out again and say, hey, can we try and start again what I tried to start with Nawaz Sharif way back and didn't work out. But I think now they're in a unique situation. And I found that out by talking to all my various Indian friends, and I have quite a few of them. They all seem to think that this time the nah is going to not come from Islamabad, but it's going to come from India, because there is a frustration that this has been tried before and it has failed before. So I do not think that there is going to be a drastic shift. Prime Minister Modi, if he takes that initiative, it would be a good thing. I think that a government that has civil-military partnership of the particular nature that we have right now and the kind of problems they have, they might be able to do things a little bit better. You talk about how Bajwa was also trying to, at that time, tweak things, but the fundamental shift will come only with not thinking a certain way. And as long as that thinking of a certain way remains, I think there will be impediments and there will be problems.
Okay, so Sushant, let me come to you for your quick take and two questions. One, can you get Hussein a visa in 24 hours? And two, how do you see the relationship, bilateral relationship panning out post 4th June for the next 2 years?
Look, if it was up to me, I would have invited Husain Haqqani and made him a visiting lecturer somewhere in India so that I don't have to give him a visa every time he wants to come to India. But unfortunately, I don't call the shots. You were calling the shots until a few months back. So you have to answer the question you've put to me. Look, on the one, let me just start with this trade thing. And I think Hussein actually nails it when he says that until and unless there's going to be a paradigm shift in how the Pakistanis view their relationship with India, nothing is going to change. I remember something which the much lamented late and much lamented I.A. Rahman once said to me. He says, in Pakistan, everybody keeps cribbing that India has never accepted the reality of Pakistan. He says the question needs to be turned on its head and Pakistanis need to be asked, have they accepted the reality of India? And the fact of the matter remains that what Hussein just said actually nails it. See, just a couple of months back, you had the Pakistan Army Chief addressing young students and saying that we can never normalize relations with India because India has not accepted Pakistan. Now, the man is almost 60 years old. He's probably living in, I don't know which century. Maybe he's living in a cave or something under a rock or something. You were a high commissioner out there to say that we have not accepted Pakistan after Vajpayee visited out there and, everything. So when you have a mindset like that and yet you have a businessman like Arif Habib saying what he said to Nawaz Sharif, Shehbaz Sharif, Shehbaz is not going to call the shots on trade with India. Right? It's going to be the army. Has he got the permission from the army? And then trade towards what end? Now, I see trade being a very self-serving objective for the Pakistanis right now. They are in a pit. They think that trade with India will help solve some of their problems. So yeah, let's open trade. We can forget about everything else. And they seem to be again, having constructed this bubble of theirs. Well, India has problems with China. If they can trade with China, why can't they trade with us? The equations don't always match. So I think they need to be realistic about what they want to do, where they want to go with a relationship like this. Do they want a relationship? And then I think the Indians also have a vote in this. It's not that that India, everybody is just waiting with bated breath that trade will open up with Pakistan and it's some kind of an El Dorado and then, we'll become some Switzerland or something like that because we are trading with Pakistan, we'll be enriched. Give it a break, right? Let's be realistic about what will happen. And I don't buy all these World Bank reports, $37 billion of trade, etc., etc. I've heard too much of it to ever take it seriously. So I don't buy all of it. I think trade is good, but whether that's the way it's going to work out, I'm not so sure. What happens post June 4th? I don't know. It depends a lot. I'm not going to say what I said the other day out here because I don't have to speak politics out here. But look, if the current government comes back to power, everybody in Pakistan seems to be thinking that, well, Mr. Modi will want to leave some legacy. I think his legacy, which even if he wants, I think this whole legacy question is overrated. I don't think people who are politicians are interested in leaving legacies. This is this American thing which they have floated that everybody must leave a legacy. I don't know which American president has left what legacy, but the fact of the matter remains that if Mr. Modi has to leave a legacy, he has plenty of legacies he's already left behind. It doesn't have to be with Pakistan, number one. Number two, I would really hope that the government was going to look at Pakistan not from a prism of romanticism or nostalgia, but from a very hard-nosed, hard-headed way to look at Pakistan. If trade is an avenue to something else, by all means consider it. But simply because you want to open up a line to Pakistan, I don't think that's the way to do it. And if the Pakistanis want it because it serves them, does it serve our interest? So I think that's the way we will have to look at it. On the bilateral front, again, if Mr. Modi is not back in power, somebody else is back in power, I would sincerely hope, although I don't think that's going to happen, that I would suspect they will make the same mistakes of dealing with Pakistan with nostalgia and romanticism. And within a couple of years, they will receive their comeuppance as all other Indian governments have received. But beyond that, I don't see any fundamental shift in bilateral relationships until and unless the Pakistanis change and then the Indians accept that the Pakistanis have changed. I think that is equally important. And we don't see any telltale signs of that happening just yet.
Okay, so I think we have from our panel a couple of quick takeaways. One is that the army will call the shots, and the second is, unlikely to be a bilateral breakthrough unless Pakistan normalizes. So this is the sentiment we have. I'm very conscious that we have a full overflowing house here. So I'm going to request now questions from the audience and quick pointed questions, being conscious that Hussain has to leave very soon. So please direct your questions to whoever and ask quick questions. We'll take 3 at a time and then go to the panel. Yes, please. The lady here, go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Samadha. I'm a student at University of Delhi. My question is that we have made it very clear that the military is going to take the shots. But what is stopping military from taking a full control like Pervez Musharraf did earlier? And my second question more towards is to Mavi ma'am that we have seen degeneration of Pakistan, many claim on the basis of religion. And now that India is going on with its Hindutva religious sentiments, which Mr. Haqqani mentioned again, does Pakistan foresee a similar kind of fate for India because of going on religion lines as that happened with Pakistan? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm R.S. Joshi and I'm from OP Jindal Global University. So my question is pertaining to the incident on May 9th. And we saw the well-coordinated attacks in which took place in Pakistan, and even I think the Karachi Corps Commander's house was blown apart and attacked. So yes, sorry, Lahore. So does it seem to be a well-coordinated attack from within the army establishment itself? Because going by the precision of the attack, it seems very unlikely for a civilian to have pulled it out.
I'm Shivanshi and I'm a student of Delhi University. My question is to Sir Hussain that do you think Pakistan will ever be able to end this military intervention, and under what circumstances is it possible? What changes should Pakistan make in its government in order to do so? Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for Marvi. Would you like to go first? You heard the question. And then Hussain, please.
Thank you. So the question that I heard was about India going Pakistan way, the possibility of India going Pakistan way. I think it's very worrying what is happening in India, because we always, like you call your liberals seculars, we are also being called names in Pakistan. So we have been viewing India with a lot of we prided in India's secular credentials and how it defeats the two-nation theory. But looking at what is happening in India for past few years, it's worrying. But I still think it will take a long time and a lot more for India to go Pakistan way. Because India's democracy is far well established than it is in Pakistan. Pakistan's is very checkered history as far as democracy is concerned, and also if the democracy is stable in a country, it means the institutions are also stronger. And also the society, Indian society, I see there's a difference in how Pakistani society responded to the obscurantism and the fascist tendencies, authoritarian regimes. Although I'm very, very proud to say that Pakistani's civil society also struggled really hard against authoritarian regimes. But we are here talking about the liberal values, the progressive values, against which our society could not really that strongly resist, that I see in India. A lot of Indian colleagues from India in journalism, a lot of civil society activists, a lot of people, students, you see a lot of indigenous organic resistance to anything that weakens Indian democracy. And that's quite hope. I mean, that kindles hope. So I think it will take a long, long time and far more obscurantist efforts to make India what Pakistan is today.
Okay, Hussain, would you like to take the questions on the army?
Well, I mean, as I understood, the question was, how would change come in Pakistan? That's how I'm simplifying it, unless you want to frame it differently.
Yeah, I think one was about whether the military will continue calling the shots, what happened on
And
May 9th,
yeah,
and will military intervention end?
look, as far as May 9 is concerned, I mean, it was a totally miscalculated move by Mr. Imran Khan and his supporters. They really thought that if they came out and if they attacked the military, the thinking in the military would be, oh God, the nation is they're turning on the military, they're turning against the military because we have abandoned Imran Khan, let's go and embrace Imran Khan again. You must understand the nature of these people's thinking. These are people who have historically always been pro-military, scratch the surface. They are not genuine, bona fide anti-establishment individuals. In 2018, they were on social media calling all of us traitors for having questioned the military's wisdom. There are many videos of Imran Khan lecturing people on how the greatest treason would be to question the military's role in Pakistan's affairs. So this was a mistaken strategy, and it backfired. The military's resolve became stronger, and they used this as a way of crushing them rather than bowing to them. So that's the answer to that one. As far as, look, ever is a very long time. Will Pakistan forever? I mean, I don't know. There's no such thing as forever. Never say forever. But for the foreseeable future, I think that there are internal realities of Pakistan which make the military the dominant institution. And any strategy to slowly wrest power from the military and get it into the political organs has not really been effectively implemented. The people who were associated with it, Benazir Bhutto and Nawaz Sharif, one of them is dead. The other one has essentially been cornered. The idea of the two people signing what was known as the Charter of Democracy was that the two parties, the two major parties of the time, they will not take the military support at any point and will oppose military intervention in politics together. That didn't work out too well, especially after Mr. Zardari and Mr. Nawaz Sharif kind of tried to outmaneuver each other between 2008 and 2013. The two parties have come together, but now they are not the only two parties. The military actually bolstered the PTI for that very reason, to have a party that was not part of that consensus. So now, unless Imran Khan, Shehbaz Sharif, and Bilawal Bhutto Zardari and Asad Zardari all come together and do a new Charter of Democracy, which doesn't seem likely at the moment, because Imran Khan's second unique selling proposition is that I don't sit together with the crooks and liars that he calls his opponents. So therefore, he's not the kind who will compromise with them. So unless all political actors are on one page and they say we will not become the military's tool, in which case the military is limited to using only technocrats, I don't think that it will be easy to get the military out of the political arena. Why doesn't the military take over directly? Well, why should they? Because if they take over directly, then they have greater responsibility and there is no buffer. And having civilians as a buffer is, at least some people are abusing some of these politicians for various things, and there is no reason for them to constantly attack the military for every mistake. And if things go very, very wrong, the military has the option of cleaning the deck and saying, oh, okay, these guys didn't deliver, somebody else will. And that option does not lie when you take over directly.
Okay, 3 more questions. Let's go at the back. Yes, go ahead.
Hi everyone, my name is Arman Chaudhary and I'm a student from University of Delhi. My question is to Indrani ma'am, that as one of the speakers said, that this might be the weakest government Pakistan has ever seen till now. And I think that might have some impact on the complex relations that the establishment shares with the terrorist group. In the last 2 months, we have seen some terrorist bombings that have happened, especially when foreigner workers like Japanese and the Chinese are coming to Pakistan. How do you think the kind of government that has been formed after the election is going to impact the relations Pakistan is sharing with other countries, given the fact that the political and the economic situation in Pakistan is really deteriorating fast?
Okay. Thank you. Yes.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Prashant. I am doing my PhD from SIS JNU. My question is to Mr. Haqqani. In this election, the sectarian parties such as TRP and JUF does very bad. So how do you interpret their decline? And my second question is that by choosing Shehbaz Sharif, who is a Punjabi, instead of Imran Khan, who is a Pathan and quite sympathetic to TTP in the past, does Pakistan Army reduce the scope of negotiation with the TTP in future and increase the danger at Afghanistan-Pakistan border?
Sir, in near future, November 24, there will be election in USA, and there are chances of Mr. Trump. Do you think it will have any impact on Pakistan politics, or there is no impact on it?
Okay, we have three questions, Hussein, for two for you. So please go ahead.
Okay, so the second question is much easier to answer. I think that the American election is about America. It's not about Pakistan. Mr. Trump is a maverick. He did meet Mr. Imran Khan. He has occasionally referred to his meeting with him. But in the end, his priorities are going to be Ukraine. His priority is going to be Indo-Pacific. And I think that within the American political system, right now, there isn't much sympathy for trying to get back involved in the nitty-gritty of Pakistan's politics. Secondly, not being a major aid donor limits America's influence. When it used to have large aid packages, the way to pressure Pakistan and its military was, we will cut off aid. What are they going to do now? So American leverage is not what it used to be in terms of managing domestic politics. So first part, they don't have the desire, in my opinion. Second part, they don't have the means. And so Mr. Trump, will he occasionally tweet if he feels like it? Yeah, he might. But I don't think that this is going to be a major policy initiative. I don't see the 7th Fleet coming into the port of Karachi to ensure that Imran Khan is released from prison and reinstalled as Prime Minister of Pakistan just because Donald Trump has won the election. On the first question, the sectarian parties, I think that go back to Mavi's original point that the army micromanaged this election and its result. And if they were micromanaging the result, then it was in their interest at this time also to marginalize the sectarian parties, because having them in the parliament only messes things up. There was a time when they were useful. They are not useful right now, so don't let them take up the seats. But they never had much support. Religious political parties in Pakistan together have never had more than 4 to 7% of the total votes ever. And they have never been enough for them to win many seats. So their value is primarily nuisance value, as there are certain parties in India also who have tremendous nuisance value. They may have student wings that are very influential and still have a presence on campuses, but they no longer are the parliamentary and political force that they used to be. And it was in the military's interest also to put them to the side. As far as talking with the TTP is concerned, look, that's another very complicated situation. The TTP has become a problem for Pakistan, but we must understand that the TTP and the Afghan Taliban were always joined at the hip. So this notion that somehow Afghan Taliban can remain Pakistan's brothers and friends while the TTP can be marginalized, it was an erroneous assumption. So will Pakistan continue to find a way of fight the TTP as well as talk to them? That's what the military wants to do. Personally, I think they should have confronted both the Afghan Taliban and the Pakistani Taliban and made sure that they weren't as well equipped and well armed and the nuisance that they have become. But that is what it is. I don't think that Pakistan is going to declare full-scale war against TTP. I don't think that they will give in to the TTP either. It's going to be a mixture of talk, fight.
Indrani, third question was for you.
I think you wanted to know how Pakistan would deal with other countries given that terrorists are targeting people. The thing is, terrorist groups have targeted Chinese engineers not just now, but have been doing it for years. I think China is in Pakistan for reasons much bigger than just building a power plant. I think those strategic reasons continue to stay. However, if you have seen China's investments in Pakistan have been scaled back. Maybe it's part of their larger scaling back of the BRI itself. But certainly there has been, as for other countries, like whether Saudi Arabia is going to put in the 5 billion that it is promised in, I think, the Recodic. But we've seen this story earlier. We haven't seen an outcome of this story. So I think we'll just have to wait. But it will still be a relationship of last-minute bailouts and emergency funding. So that's pretty much how it's going to be.
Okay, so we have just about 5 minutes. I'll take 2 last questions. So let me start with here.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ankit. I'm a research scholar from NIAS, Bangalore. I have a question for Marvi ma'am. Ma'am, based on my recent following of sense of social security in Pakistan, where crimes are increasing more than ever, and so at the end there is an outward migration which I have also heard from various radio stations which I follow. So where do you see the pyramid, the paradigm on which it is built, but significantly the tip part is only secure, otherwise everybody is just thinking about leaving the country. So what do you think about that narrative which is right now being discussed in Pakistan? Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Rishabh and I am student at University of Delhi. My question is to Marvi ma'am. Ma'am, do you think, considering in mind the recent natural calamities such as flood in Pakistan, which affected about 1/3 of its geography, would lead to a gateway of opportunity to kickstart the normalization of ties between India and Pakistan, by which India would reach out in support, just like we did for Turkey, and we see that there was a change in the mindset of the government and the people after India conducted Operation Dost.
Okay,
Thank
thanks. Last question here, please.
Sir, a few years ago, we saw a deep divide in the military establishment, splitting the military into 2 camps. Do you think in the future there could be such an influence by any civil institution which could lead to the breaking of the hegemony that the Pakistan army hold in Pakistan?
Okay, Marvi, let me take all 3 questions to you. Crimes, disaster diplomacy, and can civilians overpower the army?
Yeah. So about Mr. Ankit's question on social security, crimes, etc. Yes, and most of it is also because so what you hear about crimes in Pakistan, for example, in Karachi or in Kache ka ilaka, you must have heard about this, this term a lot, because the Kacha area in that runs from Punjab to interior Sindh has a hegemony of the robbers and dacoits, and then in Karachi there is a lot of kidnap for ransom and other crimes, and this is being extended now to Islamabad and other parts of the country. Much of it has to do with the machinations we were talking about, where the military and the deep state patronizes certain local mafias to be used later, and then in different political purposes, in the to solidify their financial and market monopoly, etc. So there are a lot of things that are at play here. These mafias then create their own source of income through these crimes. So it is intensifying, it is increasing, it's not being controlled. It seems as if no one wants it to be controlled, because, for example, dacoits of Kacha, they are used to hegemonize the cash crops in that very fertile belt, where whenever there's a cropping season, you will hear the dakus who are completely occupied that region. No one, farmers cannot, reap their crops. So many wheels within wheels, and I'm not saying that for everything deep state and military establishment is responsible, but that's seems to be the main axle around which all these things circulate. And because there is no challenger to the power, because there is no serious effort to correct that balance, I don't see there is going to be any improvement in that. And couple this with the current inflation and the common person, common man on street, how he's being crushed under the burden of there are no the wages. I hear even the government officers are not being paid for several months in some areas, not all, but in some areas. All of these things, they are multiplying, and this situation is emerging, and it is only worsening. We don't see, because the rule of law is the main thing which we don't see happening anytime soon. Things, and that is why there is this discussion of brain drain in Pakistan. A lot of people wanting to leave Pakistan. Since Ambassador Bisaria was talking about the noise machinery that PTI has, so a lot of PTI, they're attributing it to the fact that Imran Khan is in jail, so people want to just leave country. Although there are many more multiplying factors behind it. The other question was about the natural calamities, the floods, and the normalization of relations around that. We have seen that. I was actually in 2010 when there was massive flood in Pakistan. I happened to be in Delhi at that time, and I have seen how people of Delhi were raising money to help Pakistanis who were, and mind you, in 2010, there were only 2 years after the 2008 Mumbai attacks. So I have all my faith in the goodness of people in both sides, but even that couldn't happen, because I think at that time I was part of a couple of primetime TV talk shows in India, and I supported that kind of trend. And when I went back home, my home was ransacked, and my husband and I were, we narrowly escaped an assassination attempt. All of these things were happening to a lot of people who have dissenting views and who have the views that support peace, at least in Pakistan, I would say. But fast forward to 2024, I see the peace constituency being expanded a lot. The peace constituency in Pakistan existed in a very small island 20 years ago. But now I see it is being expanded to even the civil bureaucracy, which was not there before, the businessman. So I still have, a lot has happened, but I still have hope that something good can come out of it. We just need to be persistent. The last question was about the split in the army, and well, you see, the split in the army is not, it's not as significant as it appears from afar. I think that split is only for a very superficial kind of, it's a very skin deep kind of a thing. It's just, there is a difference of opinion on whether or not Imran Khan be, on that, at that level. I don't see it cutting through the whole cross-section of the military establishment and the deep state. That is, that plus the reason that political forces do not have the capacity or the willpower to actually take control or challenge meaningfully, or take advantage of this skin deep split. And that is why I say that I don't see any in foreseeable future, as Ambassador Haqqani said earlier, that I don't see any hard days for the military establishment in Pakistan.
Okay, thank you very much, Marvi, and thank you to all the panelists. We've run out of time, but it's been very enlightening. Thank you for shedding light on so much complexity. We seem to agree that the Pakistan army isn't going to go away very soon, and Pakistan is not going to normalize very soon. So thank you on that somber note. Thank you for the audience for being here and asking so many interesting questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much.